We interrupt our program to bring you a special broadcast.
Boom! Headshot!
Hey, it's Clay. How's everybody doing? And I got something a little bit new and unique and different for you guys today. I'm going to put up a gameplay commentary, which is pretty traditional in the FPS genre, over a Starcraft 2 match, where usually you have people who shoutcast stuff, but not me. Not me at all. I am actually going to try something new and different. And this is a ZVZ that I was playing today. I actually just started playing 1v1 again. I have not played 1v1 in a long time, so I'm getting back into things, which is pretty cool. But so yeah, anyways, I want to talk to you guys who I'm assuming are mostly FPS fans like me. I've posted mostly FPSs up till now, CSGO, Battlefield 3, etc., etc. But I want to talk about moving from FPSs, you know, like we're traditionally used to, things like Call of Duty, things like Battlefield. I want to talk about moving from those to moving to something like a different type of a game, like something like Starcraft, something like you know, some of these other games, maybe League of Legends, maybe something that's just a little bit different. And you know, I think one of the things that you see as an interesting element of YouTube and stuff like that in general is that people really get locked into one game, which is weird because, you know, truthfully speaking, I would imagine that most of us are gamers and we play lots of different games. And so I think that it's a kind of a relatively strange and weird phenomenon to see people really stick to one game. You know, and it's we're all going to have our favorites. We're all going to have something that we prefer, something that we enjoy primarily. You know, I think I'm always going to be an FPS guy at heart. I think I'm always going to be, you know, sticking to traditional shooters. I don't think there's any doubt in my mind that I'm always going to enjoy those types of games. But that's not to say that something like StarCraft can't have a nice place in my gaming time. And it's not to say that something like this can't be a lot of fun. You know, because it really can be. And I think that it can be really beneficial to try something new. I made a commentary a while back about in Battlefield itself, trying something new, you know, because I think I'm guilty of this. I think I have been guilty of being somebody who really likes to get locked and loaded into a traditional game type. You know, I remember when I played Counter-Strike Source, I really, really liked to play on Office. I really liked to play, you know, almost the 16K servers, and I played that almost so extremely religiously. I got really locked into one type of game, one map, one match. That's it. And I think that, you know, branching out can be a good thing. And so I think that that can even extend to different types of games. I think that that can extend into, you know, like I'm talking about here, playing something like StarCraft 2. You know, because, you know, I feel like a lot of people, the reasons why they enjoy FPS is because they're fast-paced, they're exciting, there's high action. And, you know, to be completely honest, especially something like Battlefield, you also bring in elements of strategy and teamwork and, you know, bringing lots of complex, complicated elements all into one unit, all together. And I think that that is, you know, if you're talking about a strategy game, I mean, that is the name of the game. You know, because StarCraft 2 is all about, you know, your ability to multitask, your ability to do lots of different complex things and control them all in your mind at the same time. You know, it can be really difficult and challenging to do that. You know, and it's definitely it's a really fun game. And if you guys have never played something like StarCraft 2, I would definitely recommend checking it out because it can be a ton of fun to play. It can be there's a lot of action, there's a lot of strategy, you know, and especially like I was saying, so to those Battlefield guys who love the strategy element of Battlefield, the tactics, the you know, the chess match of it. StarCraft 2 is a huge chess match. I would even say that StarCraft is like the modern video game version of chess because there are so many different routes that you can go with your builds. There are so many different types of units you can go, and those types of things really bring a ton of depth to the game. You know, but I don't necessarily want this video to be me selling StarCraft 2 because it is a sweet game, but you know, branching out, trying something new and different, testing the waters to find a new, different type of game can be a lot of fun. So yeah, it's definitely something that I would highly recommend. It's a lot of fun, you know. And in this game, I was playing against this guy, and you know, one of the things that StarCraft 2 has is it has a really, really cool matchmaking system. If you guys aren't familiar with it, It's very, very good. It's probably one of the best matchmaking systems I think available in the video game market today. It has such a really strong ability to match you against evenly, matched type of players, which is really cool. I think that it makes all your games, a little bit more interesting, a little bit more exciting, a little bit more fun when you're playing against somebody who is, at the same level that you are. I think that that's a huge benefit. And so I'm a huge fan of this type of matchmaking, and the 1v1 ladder it's really cool. And if you guys ever played Halo, it's kind of similar to that. But it does an even better job, I would say, of getting you against, evenly matched players. I know one of the gripes about Halo was that it didn't really, I would say that it didn't really have a good ceiling, if that makes sense. I remember in Halo 3, getting to level 50 was more about, getting to play with the right types of players, more so than it was about actually, being the best player in the world. Because you had people who were level 50 who were, good players, but not necessarily amazing or the best players that you could ever have. And in StarCraft 2, I mean, getting up to level Grandmaster is absolutely insane and impossible. It's absolutely crazy, the level of skill that you need to get to that level. It's just out of control, really. And so it's cool to see a game like StarCraft that it has such a high skill ceiling. It has such a high ability for somebody to become, really, really good. And, and then you bring in things like the pro scene, which is, something that's really lacking in, modern FPS right now. And the thing about StarCraft 2 is that it's a really fun game to watch in ways that I would say other FPSs aren't. It's a really fun game to, watch and follow from a spectator perspective. I mean, you have this phenomenon where you have guys like Husky, Day9, HD, Starcraft, all these guys who cast a lot of games, and their channel is all about shoutcasting, about bringing pro matches to, the public, to the lay player. And you have all these people who watch these games who aren't necessarily even that good or even play StarCraft 2 very much, but they love watching it. And I think that's something that, especially Modern Warfare 3 really lacked. It was really lacking in that regard. So it's really cool to see that. And that also brings in really interesting elements of balance. I mean, let's talk about balance in Battlefield 3. People talk about it all the time. And I think one of the things that kind of plagues that discussion is that it's all driven by, people who play in pub matches. And I think, so let's talk about specifically the like something like on Operation Metro, where you have tons of nade spam. I mean, that's just one thing in particular. Or, something like the dart glitch, or the frag rounds, the USS frag rounds. All those things were really a pain in the butt, specifically in the context of pub matches, playing in public servers where you're playing against a ton of random people. And I would say that when you talk about StarCraft, balance, the discussion is always centered around pro matches. It's always centered around the elite. How are those guys playing the game? How are those guys handling their units? And what is balance in those type of situations? And I think that is just overall a much better way to handle a balanced discussion, because, I mean, truthfully, when you balance it at the high end, then you have an argument, and you can actually say to someone, you know what, it's imbalanced for you because you're a bad player. And I know that maybe sounds harsh, but like, truthfully, you can say, hey, if you were a little bit better at your macro, or a little bit better at your aim, whatever you want to do it, whatever your skill measurement is, if you were just better at that, then it would be balanced. Because in StarCraft, you can point to these pro players and say, hey, you know what, this race is balanced because the way that these pro players handle it. And that is a totally different way of approaching balance, contrasted with, when you're talking about it from the pub scene perspective. So I think that there definitely are some advantages to a game like this. And I think that overall, it definitely is going to help, and it's going to benefit your ability to play first-person shooters in some ways. Because if you think about it, StarCraft 2 is an incredibly taxing game mentally. It's an incredibly, your multitasking, your ability to focus, your ability to handle, a really wide variety of tasks is, second to none. There really is no other type of game that does the same type of thing like StarCraft does. And, when you're playing in Battlefield, you've got all these variables, you got all these things that you have to keep in mind. And, so in Battlefield, your ability to multitask, it can only get better by, sharpening your mind in StarCraft. StarCraft is really good for tactics, for strategy, for multitasking. All those skills are still useful. They're still going to be useful and helpful in a game like Battlefield. So yeah, I think it's definitely worth it. I think it's good and it's useful and it's helpful for people to try something new, try something different. Because I think that overall it can really be a big benefit. And one thing too that I think I've noticed is that a lot of commentators, when they start complaining about the game, they'll say, "Oh, it's getting stale. We need something new to freshen up and liven up the game." And in my mind, I keep screaming like, "Well, why don't you just play a different game? There are so many other games out there that you could be playing. Why don't you just try that? Why don't you just, play a different game?" It's almost as simple as that. Play something new and different, and I can almost guarantee that, Battlefield will seem more fresh. Because after I play StarCraft for a little while, and I go back to Battlefield, it's really fun and exciting and new and different, and it brings a lot of fresh, new flavor to the game, where there really, a lot of it can just be solved by simply playing other games. Because I think it really depends on what do you expect from something like Battlefield. What do you expect? Do you expect it to be fun for an entire 2 years when it's the only game you play day in and day out? I mean, personally, in my mind, I think that is, overall, it's just, that's too much to ask. It's too much to ask of a game to be your number one, to satisfy you, to make you happy, to, fill that void for an entire 2 straight years. That just does not seem reasonable to me. It does not seem like that's really going to be a useful, effective way to do it. So as the game kind of comes to a close here, I'll definitely wind down my thoughts. Number one, I think that it is so useful and helpful to play different types of games, not just to play, different FPS, but try something like StarCraft. If you haven't got it, I mean, the Wings of Liberty is a little bit old, but they will be releasing a new expansion pack here shortly, and it's going to really revitalize the game. And it's, the strategy is always changing, so the metagame is always changing. So like I said, our balance discussions are always being new, different, changing, because, balance is such a mobile target. It's always something new, it's always something different, and you can always get better. The skill ceiling is so high. And the way that it sharpens your mind, the way that it teaches you how to think really quickly on your feet and, problem solve, those types of things. It's only going to make you better. It's only going to make you a sharper player. It's only going to make you a smarter player. But overall, I managed to get away with the win here. I'm really cleaning this guy up. Played pretty well, had some pretty decent macro, and I was able to get the win. But I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope you guys can follow suit and play some new different games. It'll really, I think, liven up your experience just to try something new. So hope you guys enjoyed. I'll see you soon.